Biden signs the Bipartisan Gun Control Bill of 2022, but what's in it is concerning. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms for your NRA certification and multifaceted gun training. Also offering aerial photography and drone services. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below. But let's talk about this. Now, as we know, or we should know as gun owners, June 25th, President Biden signed the bipartisan gun safety bill into law. Now, what's in it, because as we start to dig deeper into it, we start to find some things that are very troubling, and the wording leaves too much of an open definition as to what it actually means. But we're going to back up a little bit. I'm going to go back just once again, foundation, June 22nd. Now, coming off of this New York Post article, bipartisan gun legislation advances in the Senate with Republican backing. A bipartisan gun bill passed a key procedural hurdle in the Senate late Tuesday that clears the way for the chamber to take up the measure later this week, as lawmakers scramble to ensure final passage before Congress leaves for a 2-week recess. The Senate voted 64-34, including 14 Republicans, to advance the legislation after negotiators released the text of the 80-page bill on Tuesday, almost ensuring that Congress would enact its first substantial gun control legislation in decades. Having the backing of 14 GOP senators makes it likely the measure will be able to overcome the 60-vote filibuster threshold required to pass legislation in the 50-50 Senate. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said he would tee up a vote this week. Passage in the Democrat-controlled House will be needed before it goes to the president's desk for his signature. I'm going to skip over all this. I don't need to talk that about, because they're once again mentioning the Uvalde shooting and the Buffalo shooting, so forth. We don't need to get into that. We need to stick to what's in this actual law. But the legislation, most sweeping since Congress passed the assault weapons ban in 1994, which at the end of it, through the, specifically the FBI, violent crime did not change. As a matter of fact, it actually went down slightly, but they attributed that to a trend of where violent crime was decreasing before the assault weapons ban and after. So the assault weapons ban did not reduce crime at all. Provides financial incentives for states to create mental health programs and implement red flag laws. So they're going to bribe states with money to implement red flag laws. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. Requires expanded background checks for gun buyers under 21, increases penalties for straw purchases of firearms, and closes the so-called boyfriend loophole, prohibiting romantic partners convicted of domestic violence and not married to their victims from getting firearms. Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat, Connecticut. Yeah, I live in Connecticut. Yeah, this is the best we could do. He was a do-nothing congressperson. Now we made him a senator, and this has been his focus since day one because he hasn't done a damn thing else. And everything he proposes has nothing to do with crime. But one of the strongest advocates for gun reform legislation in the Senate heralded the deal hammered out with Republicans as the most significant piece of anti-gun violence legislation Congress will have passed in 30 years. As I said, this man is a charlatan because there were actually two very distinct cases that went national that happened right here in Connecticut. The Pettit family, the home invasion there, and the stabbing death of Marion Sanchez. He had very little to say about that. But gun violence is all he's worried about because you have to be killed a specific way to get this man's attention. He's a charlatan, period. This is a breakthrough, Murphy said, and most importantly, it's a bipartisan breakthrough. There's a bunch of garbage. You just got 14 rhinos to get on board. Let me not get into that right now. Senator John Cornyn of Texas, the top Republican negotiator in the talks, acknowledged that it didn't satisfy everyone. Some think it goes too far, others think it doesn't go far enough, and I get it. It's the nature of compromise, Cornyn said. I believe that the same people who are telling us to do something are sending us a clear message to do what we can to keep our children and communities safe. Just keep in mind that Schumer blocked the Luke and Alex School Act. I believe that was 2021. That was named after two children at the Parkland incident where they were proposing better security at schools. Schumer blocked that for coming to a vote so he could push his domestic terrorism bill. So they don't really care about safety of schools and children. Okay, it's not about that. I'm confident this legislation moves us in a positive direction, he added. Further bolstering the legislation's likelihood of winning its approval, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell voiced his support, calling it a common sense package of popular steps that will help make these horrifying incidents less likely while fully upholding the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. But the National Rifle Association, which has backed measures like reinforcing school security, said it would oppose the legislation. It falls short at every level. It does little to truly address violent crime while opening the door to unnecessary burdens on the exercise of Second Amendment freedom by law-abiding gun owners, it said in a statement posted on Twitter. So that's a little background, but then I'm going to bring you to this. I've always said it in the past, I'm really not big on hearing this guy speak, but we need to listen to this because, once again, he pushes the same false talking points that he has been pushing for pretty much since he's been elected when it comes to the issue of the Second Amendment and violence. I'm not going to say gun violence because violence is violence. But let's listen to this.
This morning, though, we're here on a critical issue, gun violence. I'm about to sign into law a bipartisan gun safety legislation, and time is of the essence. Lives will be saved. When we return from Europe, Jill and I will be hosting an event in the White House on July 11th to mark this historic achievement with members who voted for these families and the families who, in fact, were victimized by the gun shooting that we've seen. It's so incredible to see so much of it of late. And advocates have worked really hard to do something about it. I've been at this work for a long, long time. And I know how hard it is, and I know what it takes to get it done. I was there 30 years ago, the last time this nation passed meaningful gun safety laws, and I'm here today for the most significant law to be passed since then, for the last 30 years. I'd like to thank the leaders and members of the House and Senate for working together to get this done. I especially want to thank the families that Jill and I, many of them we sat with for hours on end across the country. So many we've gotten to know who lost their souls to an epidemic of gun violence. They lost their child, their husband, their wife. Nothing is going to fill that void in their hearts. But they led the way, so other families will not have the experience and the pain and trauma that they had to live through. From Columbine to Sandy Hook to Charleston, Orlando, Las Vegas, Parkland, El Paso, Atlanta, Buffalo, Uvalde. And for the shootings that happen every day in the streets that are mass shootings that we don't even hear about. The number of people killed every day in the streets. Their message to us was do something. I don't know how many times we heard that. Just do something. For God's sake, just do something. Well, today we did. While this bill doesn't do everything I want, it does include actions I've long called for that are going to save lives. It funds crisis intervention, including red flag laws. It keeps guns out of the hands of people who are a danger to themselves and to others. And it finally closes what is known as the boyfriend loophole. So if you assault your boyfriend or girlfriend, you can't buy a gun or own a gun. It requires young people aged 18 to 21 to undergo enhanced background checks. It includes the first ever federal law that makes gun trafficking and straw purchases distinct federal crimes for the first time. It clarifies who needs to register as a federally licensed gun dealer and run background checks before selling a single weapon.
Okay, you saw that, you heard that. Now, we need to get into the actual nuts and bolts of this thing and those things that are worrisome. Now, from this website, this is randoland.us, and they did a good breakdown of this. Now, it's titled the Bipartisan Gun Control Bill of 2022, Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. After receiving support on a procedural vote from 15 Senate Republicans, the bill is expected to easily become law, which it did. Senate Republicans who supported the bill included Roy Blunt, Richard Burr, Shelley Moore Capito, Bill Cassidy, Susan Collins, John Cornyn, Joni Ertz, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, Rob Portman, Mitt Romney, Tom Tillis, Todd Young, Pat Toomey. Of course, there's a whole slew of rhinos in there, especially the leading three, Collins, Murkowski, Romney. That's why they then decided to call this a bipartisan bill, because they got these 14 to get on board, and then that just makes it bipartisan, which is garbage. But I want to jump down to here, additional requirements for FFL firearm sales to persons under 21. Federal firearms licensees conduct a background check must immediately contact the Criminal History Repository or Juvenile Justice Information System, the appropriate state custodian of mental health education records. This sunsets in 2032. A local law enforcement agency where the buyer resides. Licensees must inform the buyer within 3 business days whether cause exists for further investigation. Sunsets 2032. Licensees must inform the buyer within 10 business days whether or not they are disqualified from purchasing. Each state and federal agency responsible for submission of disqualifying records must submit an annual report on removal of records that no longer prevent an individual from lawfully acquiring or possessing a firearm. And I hope the first 18-year-old that goes in there to buy a rifle, whatever kind, and gets caught up in this, takes the whole thing to court. Because they're putting more scrutiny on someone under the age of 21 than they would somebody who's 21. And that's not constitutional. You can't judge people differently based on their age. That's going to become a problem for someone. So hopefully this will go to court. But I'm going to go down here now to redefine standards of being engaged in a business for FFL dealers, redefinition of terrorism. Section 2 of 921 of Title 18 U.S. Code, the words "with the principal objective of livelihood and profit" are replaced with the words "to predominantly earn a profit." Right away, that's questionable language, because if you sell a gun for profit, are they now saying you must be an FFL? You sell your gun to a friend and you make $10, now you got to get a federal firearms license to make the trade or to make the sale? Okay. The section also defines purposes of terrorism that dealers will be engaging in. Terrorism is defined as an activity directed against United States persons which is committed by an individual who is not a national or permanent resident alien of the United States, involves violent acts or acts dangerous to human life, which would be a criminal violation if committed within the jurisdiction of the United States, is intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion, or to affect the conduct of a government by assassination or kidnapping. Wouldn't that kind of fall right in line with the people who are protesting out of Supreme Court judges' houses, who have come out publicly and said we are trying to intimidate them because we don't like the ruling? Or should we talk about the attempted assassination, let's call it that, against Justice Kavanaugh? But I'm going to show you what this is all about later. But let me keep going because I want to get through this part here. Use of federal funds for red flag laws. Burn grants may be used for implementation of state crisis intervention programs, including extreme risk protection order programs. Basically, as I said before, they're going to bribe the states to pass red flag laws. Red flag law program must include pre-deprivation and post-deprivation due process rights, the right to an in-person hearing, an unbiased educator. Yeah, no standards listed. Notice how they put that in there. Unbiased, yeah. I don't see that going well. The right to know opposing evidence, the right to present evidence, and the right to confront adverse witnesses. The right to be represented by counsel at no expense to the government, which means you got to pay for it. Pre-deprivation and post-deprivation, heightened evidentiary standards and proof. Penalties for abuse of the program, no specifics listed. So if somebody makes an accusation against someone else and it's found to be false, there's just a good chance that person will face no repercussions for making that accusation, because no specifics listed lets you know. It's at the discretion of the unbiased educator. Enhanced straw purchasing penalties. 15 years and a fine for making a straw purchase from a prohibited individual or someone who intends to use, carry, possess, or sell, or otherwise dispose of the firearm in furtherance of a felony, a federal crime of terrorism, or a drug trafficking crime. 25 years and a fine for making a straw purchase with the knowledge, reasonable cause to believe that the firearm will be used to commit a felony, a federal crime of terrorism, or a drug trafficking crime. Enhanced firearms trafficking penalties. 15 years and or a fine for shipping, transporting, transferring, causing to be transported, or otherwise disposing of any firearm to another person in or otherwise affecting interstate commerce if such person knows or has reasonable cause to believe that the use, carrying, or possession of a firearm by the recipient would constitute a felony. Okay, I don't want to go down to here because this one is a chuckle. Prohibition on firearms or ammunition transfers to agents of drug cartels. Yeah, most likely a response to President Obama's Fast and Furious program, which walked guns to cartels without tracking them. Fast and Furious firearms were eventually used to murder a Border Patrol agent. Can you not see the irony in that one? But let's keep going down to here. Widened definition of domestic violence for disqualifying individuals from purchasing firearms. Misdemeanor crimes of domestic violence may now be prosecuted against a person in a current or recent former dating relationship with the victim. This is typically referred to as the boyfriend loophole. Once again, you dated someone 6 months ago, you go to purchase a firearm, and that person comes out and says, oh yeah, they abused me. They don't have to prove it. They can just say it. This is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Due process. But let's keep going. Dating relationship is defined as a relationship between individuals who have or have recently had a continuing serious relationship of a romantic or intimate nature. A dating relationship is determined by the length of the relationship, the nature of the relationship, the frequency and type of interaction between the individuals. A casual acquaintance or ordinary fraternization in a business or social context does not constitute a dating relationship. This law is not retroactively applied to previous convictions. Persons convicted of misdemeanor domestic violence under dating relationships, definitions may regain their firearm rights after 5 years under certain conditions. Now, we can skip through the rest of that. As I said, there are some things in there that are very disturbing because the language is so open that it could be defined at the whim of the adjudicator, if you wish, upon their understanding and their personal bias, because you're not going to find an unbiased adjudicator. That's not going to work. Everybody comes with a specific bias. But what is this actually about? Now, I found this and I'm in full agreement with what is being said here. This is from the Facebook page of the Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. I really don't give a damn what you think about her personally. It's not the point, because what she is saying here is on point and something that a lot of people have said, but myself have also said. The way that they push, remember when the parents came out at school board meetings and protested the CRT and protested the drag shows and protested the drag queen story hour and protested all these things that were pushing on kids, what did the school board do? The National School Board went to the FBI to have these people basically marked as domestic terrorists. But she says this here, and I'm going to read this because, like I said, it's on point. So it should be up here on my shoulder. Passing red flag laws was not a solution by Democrats to stop mass shootings. It will be a tool to disarm any gun owner that wants to stop abortion, the trans agenda on kids, mass illegal immigration, and big government oppression, suffocating our families' faith and freedoms. Republican senators failed their voters and helped Democrats create a very dangerous bill, making it now possible to red flag Americans when their political enemies feel a gun owner is a threat to themselves or others. Truth. After Roe was overturned and the return to anarchy and demand for baby-killing riots, is there any doubt in anyone's mind that the evil, immoral left will stop at nothing until they've completely gutted our country of all righteousness and totally annihilate law and order? If you think they won't use red flag laws to disarm conservative Americans, you are a fool. They will go after a selected few and red flag them. They will tell you they are right-wing domestic terrorists. The threat against trans people, abortion clinics, or maybe election authorities or school boards allowing drag queen school shows and the fact that these right-wing domestic terrorists are gun owners with a large amount of dangerous weapons of war will be all they need to make the accusations and red flag them. Then they will be prosecuted or persecuted in the public square by the media, where undoubtedly they'll be exposed as Trump supporters, and you will know everything about their lives, like how many pocket constitutions they have stashed in their house, all with a purpose. And there we go. To send all of you a message to keep your mouth shut and back down, or you will suffer the same persecution as these others. Accept the trans strippers dressed in drag grooming your kids, baby murder as birth control, and all of the assaults on your freedoms and way of life. If you don't like it, well then you will end up just like these others, disarmed and publicly shamed. All thanks to red flag laws that we warned would violate people's due process rights and cause a terrible violations of American Second Amendment rights. Don't you get it yet? Violence and riots are justified for the left, but they are insurrection for the right. Antifa is not real, but AOC can call them out when she chants, "Take to the streets." And there is a two-tiered justice system that only persecutes the right. Every single elected Republican must wake up and face this frightening reality and make a decision. Are you capable of taking a hard stand with not just your words, but also your actions? If not, then you will continue to enable the left to ultimately win. Truth. That's exactly what these red flag laws are going to become. They've set the foundation, now they're going to put it to action. When you go to a school board meeting and protest something that you don't want your child to learn at the age of 5, such as alternate lifestyles or anything else like that, they're going to peg you as an extremist. So she's on point with that. And I believe that's exactly why these red flag laws are in place, why they've been pushed so quickly through. And shame, and not so much shame on these 14 Republicans. I expected some of them to do this because they're not Republicans truly. They're not conservative in the name, in the way that you would expect a Republican to be. They're just wishy-washy. And I really am disappointed that once again they pushed through this legislation, 80 pages, and didn't give anybody a chance to read what's in it. But they've done this before. Look at the Obamacare. Same thing. But this has more dire consequences because they're going to start coining people as domestic terrorists and red flag them. It's going to get really bad. It's going to get ugly. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get notified the next time a video goes live. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.